Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Mythic. I am your host, Spencer, and I am joined by the runner up to the first CCMTG Discord Open, Andrew Elliott.
Hey Spencer, what's up, man?
Is that the most intense intro you've ever heard for yourself?
That's pretty close. I mean, that made me feel like a wrestler.
Yeah. So I know you did football. Did you also do wrestling?
No, my dad thought it was too violent. Funny enough.
Your dad thought wrestling was. I did wrestling, and I didn't do football. Funnily enough.
I
So
mean,
there we go.
football's better. Football's better. I wish I did both. Definitely wish I did both.
Football's better, he says. Football is better. Well, let's get right into this. So this is episode 16 of Mythicast. You know, I just want to give a special shout out. There's going to be something before the episode to kind of talk about this, but I want to give a special shout out to Mike, who's been the current host of Mythicast for a couple months. Mike is kind of taking a step back right now, but I think that Mike did a phenomenal job. He did better than I ever could have expected on the show, and I legitimately am sad to have him leave. It comes as a shock to me, just probably as much as it comes to a shock to you, the listeners. Mike was doing an amazing job, but he will forever be a part of the CCMG family, and I will just always appreciate the time that we got to have him as the host of the show. So, with that being said, this episode is not about Mike, Andrew. It is about you. And Andrew, I'm gonna say something weird because it's a video, but can you sit up in your chair a little bit? Come on, man. You're a developer. You gotta sit up like straight all day long.
I mean, that's the goal anyway. Definitely.
Yeah. If you don't, it is actually really bad for your back. As somebody that's like been in I actually have thought about bringing my gaming chair into work. We have one developer that has already done it, so I've legitimately thought about doing it. And I'm not even like coding. I'm just like sitting there, writing emails and stuff like that. So.
I told Crystal that's what I want for Christmas, was one of those sweet chairs like you.
Yeah, this one was a good deal. It's only $100 last Black Friday. I can send you a link.
Oh, heck yeah, dude. I'm all in.
Yeah, this one's sweet. So, but this is once again, this is not about gaming chairs. This is about Andrew. Andrew, so I'm just gonna read off some of your recent Magic accomplishments. You had a top 4 this year at the SCG Regionals. What format was that?
That was modern.
Modern, awesome. Was it with Infect or was it with Etron?
It was definitely with Infect, yeah.
Infect, all right. You have a RPTQ top 8 for PT Hour Devastation. You've top 16. It looks like multiple classics. Is that correct?
No, just the one.
Just the one. And of course, your biggest accomplishment was taking Jeskai Planeswalker Fires to second place in the first CCMTG Discord Open.
Rip getting a trophy.
Dude, the trophy's sweet. I'll have to show it to you. I gotta order it this week, but it's a good one. So, yeah, just here's a dagger. Just put that somewhere. So tell me really quick. I mean, you still qualified for the CCMTG Invitational, so the only thing really missing on this one, and you split the cash. So really, the only thing missing is that trophy.
I mean, man, that's all I want. Like a top 4 regionals. I want the trophy. I want something that says I was good at Magic at one point in time.
Can I ask? Do you? This is kind of separate from. This isn't in the notes or anything. But Matt Kling and I, for Constructive Criticism, we're starting a contest in 2019 where we aren't allowed to split in 1Ks, and we're going to track who wins the most 1Ks through the year without splitting. So it's like who got the most winnings, like who won the most cash, who won the most 1Ks. It's going to be a sweet contest. Do you find that splitting in the finals took pressure off for you in some way?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, we're just like, we're playing for pride and a trophy. I guess.
Do you think that it's wrong then? Do you think that it's actually better to keep the pressure on in those situations? So we had Alexander Hain come on our podcast on constructive criticism, and he said if there's one piece of advice that I can give to Magic players trying to improve, it's to stop chopping. Stop splitting.
Really?
Stop splitting whether you're at your pre-release. Stop splitting in the finals of your local FNMs. Just always play for the most you can play for to put yourself in as many high pressure situations as possible.
I mean, if that works for him, whether I'm playing for a pack or for a trophy or for nothing, I'm gonna play the way I can.
Sure.
And pressure's pressure. Like I put it on myself whether there's a prize or not.
So, Andrew, today we're going to talk a little bit about the Jeskai Planeswalker deck that you piloted. But let's talk about you for a second. So, throughout your time in Magic, I know that Magic has both been pretty serious for you to not playing at all, to kind of balancing your career, your marriage, your life, and trying to figure out what Magic means to you. So, kind of where are you at with Magic right now? I know that from what I've seen, you're actually wanting to take Magic more seriously moving forward.
Yeah, the biggest part was just locking down a career that let me be able to afford to grind and go to all these opens because it's not cheap. Anybody that plays Magic competitively knows that. But come 2020, I'm looking to get on that PC race.
So kind of what helped you decide to make Magic more of a more than just like this casual thing that you do with your friends on Friday nights?
I'm too competitive. I couldn't play football anymore when I got hurt, and something had to take that place.
You are not the first football player to tell me that, for what it's worth. This is pretty common among people who like competitive Magic that played football. It's I couldn't play football anymore for X or Y, and now I gotta fill that outlet somehow. So what is it about both football and Magic that fills that competitive drive for you?
Well, for me, I played linebacker in football, and linebacker, while it is physical, it's much more mental. You have to be able to read a play, you have to be able to read the running back, the inner wide receivers, and so forth. And so there's that mental aspect to it. And, there's just something about, beating your opponent and being the better player at the table. It feels that drive. It feels great.
Is there anything that either blitz packages or defending a slot receiver or, having to read a run play that you've applied to Magic?
Tendencies. That's as far as learning the deck that you're sitting across from. That's probably the biggest one. Like if you understand the running back is trying to run through the B gap, that's the same way as knowing, well, these are the common play patterns for soul type food or whatever you're playing against.
Okay, cool. It's nice to see those kind of real life comparisons happen in Magic. I always love to see that. So when you're not playing Magic and you're not watching the Titans do decent at football the last couple of weeks. Hey, can I get a shout out, by the way? I told you he would be better. Can we get a public I told you so? Spencer Howland was right.
You did. I mean, I'm allowed to be, skeptical. I mean, it was Ryan Tannehill.
Dude, he had the third most 3,000-yard seasons in the NFL when he was with the Dolphins.
Yeah, and what was the best record the Dolphins put up?
That's fine. He went to the playoffs. Well, no, he went to playoffs multiple. He had multiple 10-win seasons. Either way, I knew this would happen.
I mean, I didn't think it would be better than Mariota, but then again, I didn't think Mariota would be that bad. So,
hey, Mariota will always have that touchdown to himself, man. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, he'll go to Miami next.
Is that kind of your main hobby outside of Magic? Is football though?
Watching football, hanging out with my wife, doing things she likes to do.
What are the things that you and your wife do together?
Hit up thrift shops, go shopping, hang out, and watch The Mandalorian now, Disney Plus.
Awesome. Was she into Star Wars before The Mandalorian?
No.
No, awesome. Well, that's pretty cool. My wife is super into The Mandalorian too. We watch it together every week. I watch it twice every week, once by myself and then once with her. So it's pretty cool to kind of have that and share that with your loved one. So.
Yeah, that's what I was doing before we were doing this. We were finishing up an episode.
Awesome. So with you being married and with you having that, I know that you worked a lot on some front end stuff, some JavaScript and things like that in the last year, and I know that you've even looked into learning Python or Ruby on Rails. What are kind of how do you balance learning to code, being married, and actually executing on that code and executing on that married life, and also, trying to either maybe there are some months where you want to grind Mythic, maybe there are some months where you want to hit up IQs. Like, how do you balance that?
Well, I know this is Mythic Cast, but I've only hit Mythic once, and that was last month.
That's okay.
And that's kind of indicative of, I don't have a whole lot of time to grind Arena. I use it more of a testing tool to learn, again, those play patterns of decks and the metagame and whatnot. Since Arena mirrors paper really, really well, I've come to notice.
Sure. So did you get Mythic with Team Rec, or did you get Mythic with Jeskai?
I got Mythic with Team Rec.
Okay. And what made you switch to Jeskai? I know that you had tried both the Planeswalker version and the Ponies version. Is that correct?
No, I tried the Planeswalker version and I tried five color Niv
Oh,
fires.
five color Niv. Okay.
Yeah. I made the switch because Veil of Summer got banned, and that
Sure.
was one of the best cards in the deck. And
Sure.
like Thought Erasure hurts, and Assassin's Trophy hurts, and
So
yeah.
did you kind of just go for Mythic last month because you were like, well, this is something that I want to prove to myself that I can do, or what was the reason?
Soul Typhoon was really really big, and Team Rex seemed to have a pretty decent matchup against it.
So it kind of just
And
naturally happened.
I went from like gold to diamond in like a weekend. I was like, well, I'm here. I might as well try it,
Sure.
and I hit it. So,
Yeah, I know that every time I've ended up in Diamond, I'm just like, well, I guess I'm going to hit Mythic this time. So I feel ya. Because I don't play the ladder. So, like, I was bronze yesterday and silver, got silver last night. And, like, I don't know that I'll continue to play. So I think for a lot of people, the grind is about, like, are you trying to qualify for everything? Is that, like, your personal goal? And I know for you, that isn't. Like, you're more focused on probably trying out SCGs in the future and things like that.
yeah, yep, that's exactly it.
Well,
Like,
is
go ahead.
there any advice that you would give to people about the ladder specifically?
Uh, I mean, the one piece of advice is that I need to take myself is don't let it get to you. Like you're gonna go on a losing streak. You're gonna lose some points there, and you're probably gonna go down a rank or two every once in a while. And that was probably the most frustrating part of me is I would win 3 or 4 in a row, and I would go on a pretty bad losing streak for what would seem like forever. And just understand it's a game, and you're trying to have fun. I know it means a lot to a lot of people, but just try to remember it's a game.
Awesome. I think that's really good advice. Well, let's actually talk about the deck that you piloted at the Constructive Criticism Discord Open. We're gonna move over here, and I'm just gonna read the deck list off really quick. We have 3 Fave Wishes, 2 Realmcloak Giant, 4 Narset Parted Veils, 4 Teferi Time Reveler, 1 Ral Storm Conduit, 3 Sark of the Masterless, 1 Ugin, 3 Shimmer Possibilities, 4 Deafening Clarion, 2 Drawn from Dreams, 2 Prison Realm, and 4 Fires of Invention. This deck has 27 lands with 1 castle, 2 Fable Passage, and then, kind of your typical Planeswalker mana base. Looks like you have 3 Sacred Foundry, 4 Steam Vents, 3 Temple of Epiphany, 1 Temple of Triumph. In the sideboard, you have 1 Deafening Silence, 3 Madcap Melee, 1 Elder Spell, 1 Unmoored Ego, 1 Kaya's Wrath, 1 more Ral Storm Conduit, 1 Nicol Bolas Dragon God, 1 more Sarkin, 1 Time Wipe, 1 Casualties of War, 1 Dreadhorde Command, 1 Planar Cleansing, and 1 Plane-Wide Celebration. So, Andrew, how did you end up on this specific 75?
I got it off MTG Goldfish. I was just looking for a sweet deck to play in the open, and I was almost registered 5 color Niv, and then I was like, I just went on one of those bad losing streaks. I lost like 5 or 6 in a row to a bunch of like red decks. I was like, well, okay, maybe this isn't that good, but I knew I wanted to play Fires of Invention because free spells are the best spells. So I played this, loved it, and the rest is history.
So, do you know whose list it was that you got?
I don't. It was just one on MTG Goldfish.
Okay. Well, we'll have to find that. We'll see if we can give that person credit as well. But it served you well. I know that you beat Mason Clark and you're winning in, and then were able to. Did you win your next round or did you lose your next round?
So Mason was the round before last in the Swiss, and then I had one more round that was my actual winning in. So I lost the first round.
Were you not locked at XN two?
I was XN1, so no.
Well, I'm saying, had you lost, would you not still have made it?
It was close. I was in like 4th or 5th. I didn't want to risk it, so
Sure.
I didn't want to concede.
Sure. Well, how did you feel about the deck? Like, what were the kind of like the big takeaways for you? Like, why? I know that you said you were looking for a sweet deck. You specifically picked this deck over something like Jeskai Fires with the Cavalier package.
I like this because I like casting Planeswalkers. They seem a little bit harder to interact with. And if people are playing cards like their own Fires, or if I have a Teferi, then it's almost nearly impossible for them to answer my own Planeswalkers with counter magic or whatever. So they have to play to the board, which then plays into the infinite sweepers that I have. So I really like that aspect.
Yeah, one of the sweepers that I wanted to talk to you about was Realmcloak Giant. I noticed that you were playing that over Time Wipe in the main, where Time Wipe can be grabbed by Narset, What was the reason that you stuck with Rumcloak Giant? Was it just the list that you were looking at, or did you have other reasons?
It was originally in the list. I wanted to make changes. I wanted to add 2 time wipe to the board or to the main, but I didn't have enough time to test it, and I didn't want to just, I didn't want to mess anything up.
Sure, that makes some sense. Is there, is there anything specifically that drew you? Like, I know that you beat the mirror in the top four. Did you feel favored in the mirror? Or did you actually feel like you were a dog in the mirror? How did you feel there?
Oh God, no! I thought I was a dog. I thought I was going to lose. I thought I was going to get embarrassed. I definitely think the ponies version is the much more consistent version. Now that I've played both, I just didn't have enough time to test.
Okay, so would you actually play the ponies version moving forward?
Yeah, I would 100% recommend it. I think it's the best deck in standard.
Interesting. Okay, so what do you think that this deck lacks that deck has?
Consistency. But between Cavalier of Gales and Cavalier of Flames being able to just churn through your decks just so quickly and so consistently, I think that's what puts it over the edge.
Okay. If people wanted to play this deck, is there any tips or tricks that you would give them specifically about this one?
If you can cast Shimmer a possibility on 2, you're in a really good position.
What about Shimmer that kind of helps with that?
Well, so a lot of my hands, like the best part of this deck is the mana base. And if I can cast Shimmer on 2, I understand that it really depends on what you're trying to find, but if you need a third land, Shimmer is usually going to find that. If you need a Deafening Clarion or a Planeswalker to get going on 3, something to bridge that 2 to 4 gap till you can hit fires, or if you need to find fires, I think Shimmer is just the best card in the deck. Well, maybe probably second to Sarkhan, but
going into this new format, one of the cards that I know that I was really excited about was actually Sarkhan, and the reason for that is how well it matches up against something like Nissa. And if you expected ramp decks and Nissa decks to appear, Sarkhan was actually just insane against that, as it went over the top of the lands, it pressured Nissa in a way that she couldn't interact with, and it also makes it so she can't attack into Sarkhan. Is that something that excited you about this deck?
again, I didn't have a whole lot of time to test. I was kind of learning as I went against this or with this deck. And I played against Nissa twice. I played it round, what was it, 3 and round 4 against Nissa decks. And I noticed that right away. I was just like, come on, give me Sarkhan so I can kill this Nissa and keep pressuring their life total. And, it's just, yeah, I learned that as I went.
So I think that it's pretty common that the ponies version of the deck is often considered like a combo deck. Do you think that Sarkhan plus Planeswalkers and this is also like a combo control element, or do you find this to be like a more real control deck?
I actually find it to be more mid-range. I want to control the board and then just value you out with my Planeswalkers.
What are the
that makes
kind
sense.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. What do you find that like really helps you do that? I know that you have, 2 Prison Realm as spot removal. You got Deafening Clarion and Bronco Giant as mass removal, and obviously you can tempo people out with like the fairy. What are the common play patterns that let you control the board?
Play pattern I kept seeing coming up was Shimmer into either Teferi or Clarion, wipe the board, play fires, or if I have to, play another Shimmer to try to find that next card that I need to just keep pressuring my opponent. But Clarion into fires into Dreams or Drawn from Dreams or a Ral is actually pretty great.
So Drawn from Dreams is one that really excites me when it comes to the Fires deck specifically. I know that a lot of the Ponies deck versions of the deck, they don't play that card because they play, obviously the Ponies let them dig through their deck. How good was Drawn from Dreams? It seems like, just being able to grab the 2 things that you need in this deck has a lot more upside than something along the lines of like the Brainstorm does from the Cavalier.
Oftentimes if you're able to cast Drawn from Dreams on turn 4 with a Fires, being able to find either land plus Sarkhan or just 2 things to wipe the board, play to the board, that kind of deal. It was just back-breaking for my opponent several times throughout the day.
Awesome. So 3 Fav Wishes. This is one that is controversial as to how many you should play. Obviously, it looks like you're playing a Ral Storm Conduit over the 4th I know that you, like you said, this isn't your list specifically, but did you have any thoughts on this? I mean, Ralph's Scry seems like it could be really good for you. Obviously, being able to copy something like Drawn from Dreams or Deafening Clarion or even Shimmer Possibilities seems pretty strong. Where did you end up with kind of where did you feel about Ral? Obviously, there's another one in your 75.
So the Ral is actually me. I actively chose it over the fourth Fae of Wishes because some of the games that I played with this deck, I just kept getting flooded on Fae of Wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And while the card's good, like it's actually pretty horrible in multiples more often than not. So I was like, well, what's something that can give me or get me deeper in the deck while I was also playing to my game plan? And I came across Ral, and it fits so great there in the curve between Teferi and Sarkhan. I mean, if you ever get to copy a Fae of Wishes or a Deafening Clarion or even a Drawn from Dreams, it's really, really good.
Okay, so this is actually an adjustment that you made to the list.
Mm-hmm.
And is that true of the one on the sideboard as well?
Yep.
So what are you boarding that in against?
I usually don't. I usually just wish for it if I need it.
Oh, you're actually playing it as a wish target.
Yeah.
So is there anything in your sideboard that you board in regularly other than Red Cat Melee?
With this list, no. Outside of Red Cat Melee, if I'm playing against a heavy creature package, I might bring in the extra Time Wipe and the Planar Cleansing, and then I can wish for the Kaya's Wrath if I need it.
Sure.
But outside of that, I'm usually not boarding anything.
Okay. So talk to me about, like, obviously a lot of players are used to the different versions of this deck. How do you go between, like, picking, like, do I want Planewide Celebration? Do I want Command the Dreadhorde? Like, what are the top end cards that I want, and when do I wish for them? Is there, like, kind of a rule of thumb for you? Is it kind of just, this is the decision point that I'm at, and now I make that decision? How does this work for you to kind of decide both what your wish package looks like and what you're wishing for?
Again, I just used what I knew in my brief testing for this. I didn't change anything out of the sideboard except for the Ral. They had a second Deafening Silence, and that just didn't seem good.
Yeah, is the Deafening Silence, what were you boarding that in against?
I didn't bring it in once. I didn't even wish for it once throughout the entire event. Like, it was just, I understood why it was there, but...
Do you think that you could have used something like a Disenchant effect in that slot instead?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely wish I had some number of Disenchants for the tournament that day. Immediately after the tournament, I actually took out some of the cards from my board and put in Disenchants and a Grafdigger's Cage.
What was Grafdigger's Cage for?
I was trying to target the cat decks.
Okay. And you ended up losing in the finals to Green Black Adventures. Typically a matchup that I think that you would have felt pretty good about. Is there anything that you think caused you to lose that match as far as deck choice or play patterns? Or, I mean, obviously you did really well. I think that was, you lost 2 matches all day, and one of them was Green Black. What was the other loss to?
Green Black.
It was Green Black twice. So what do you think happened there?
Questing Beast. Being able to cast Questing Beast on turn 3 or 4 on consistently is just the death knell for this deck.
So is there anything that you think that this deck can do to overcome the fact that Questing Beast is so rough for it?
I haven't really thought about it a whole lot, to be honest. I mean, we could play something like Lava Coil, but we can't really play counter magic because we're a Fires deck.
Yeah. One thing that I thought about looking at this deck, for what it's worth, is a Justice Strike main over one of the Deafening Clarions, because they're both so good against aggressive decks. Then you could move a Deafening Clarion to the board to kind of get that extra sweeper once you're moving Time Wipes to the main. Anyway, that was something that I thought of that also gets that you can grab off of Narset.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Let's say that. So I have a PTQ this week. You're telling me that I should not register this version of the deck that I like way more than the Ponies version.
I mean, yeah, I'm gonna say that, to be completely honest, because I've not won a game since the Open with this deck.
That's too bad, Andrew. That's too bad. Because here's the thing: is I went from I don't know. I played some ladder last month with the Ponies deck and got obliterated. So I'm having a hard time believing in Ponies, man.
I mean, this deck is fun. I'll give you that. I had a blast playing this deck all day.
Sure.
But kind of take your fate into your own hands.
Where do you think the edges come on with this deck? Like, where do you think that you become the favorite, and where can people, if they really just want to play Fires, but they just don't want to play the combo, where do you think that they can gain edges playing this?
understanding the cards that are in your sideboard and how they interact with the matchup that you're in. Because I mean, if you wish, you need to understand, like, you have to have a plan right away for what you're wishing for. You can't just cast, Granted, and grab just some random card. You're just going to lose like that. There are several times in testing where I would grab a planar cleansing a turn early, and it would cost me because they would have, either a counter spell ready then, because they know the card that you're wishing for.
Yeah.
And
in covering the top eight, I want to go over your mana base before we kind of wrap up. I noticed that Interplanar Beacon, anytime you were able to gain 2 to 4 life off of that card put in work for you.
Oh yeah.
All day.
Yeah. It's the best land in the deck.
So do you think that is an advantage that this deck has over the Ponies version?
Yeah. Just being able, because even one Interplanar Beacon is going to gain you anywhere between 3 and 5 life during a game, but more often than not. And sometimes that just decides the match. Like, this deck actively wants to play against like the Red-Black Knights or the Mono Reds or just aggro decks.
Sure.
Because Interplanar Beacon and Deafening Clarion are just so backbreaking for those decks.
Talk to me about Castle of Ventress. That's kind of the last real land in your deck that does something. And obviously in this deck you want to draw it all the time, but you're still only playing one.
Yeah, I definitely wish I had more than one throughout the tournament. With not having to spend any mana on our spells when we have fires out, being able to basically set the top of your deck at the end of your opponent's turn and at the start of your turn before you draw is actually pretty good. So you're getting to scry 4 cards deep.
And one of the reasons that you get to do it during your turn is because you're actually not playing something like a Kenrith or something like the Red Cavalier.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually just have your mana all the time.
Right. Yep.
Was Kenrith anything that you thought about before the event or something that you thought about after the event?
No, I just want to keep playing Planeswalkers. With that interaction with fires and being able to get those off of Narset and Interplanar Beacon, I don't want to add any other creatures to the deck. Like, I actually want to cut the Realm Flow Giants.
Okay, cool. I think that's super helpful for those listening at home. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on, talking about this deck. Obviously, congratulations on the awesome event. I just want to give a special shout out to our first place winner, Mikkel. He does not speak English, so it wasn't the best fit for the podcast, but I was super excited to have Andrew come on and talk about this because, Andrew, you've been a listener of the podcast for a long time, and, I was rooting for you, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and shout out to Mikkel. He played really, really well.
Yeah. So if people want to find you, Andrew, you just changed your Twitter handle because I went to put it on the screen for the show and couldn't find you. So where can people find you?
Yeah, I did change my Twitter handle because it was kind of hard for people to spell out. You can find me at AE_web_dev on Twitter. You can find me on Twitch at Jeskai Ascendancy because I have a bad addiction. And that's it. That's where we got.
You can find those in the show notes if you're looking to watch Andrew stream. There might be some changes to his stream coming up. I don't know. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And you can also like and subscribe here on YouTube. Find the podcast every week on iTunes. You can find me at Spencer H. You can find the show at Arena Mythic Cast. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. Once again, congratulations. I'm excited to see you just steal that trophy at the next one, even though you're already qualified. So.
Oh, I'm out for blood this time.
Yeah, the only thing you'll be playing for is the trophy at that point. So,
store credit.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching, and we'll see everybody next week with another episode of Arena Mythic Cast.